Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be kicking this off today. I'm happy everyone could navigate the labyrinth of Department of Commerce, the Ronald Reagan building, to find this space. It took me about 10 minutes to get from the entrance over to here, so I'm happy to see so many people could make it this. So my name's Matthew Manning. I work in the Department of Energy's Office of International Market Development. My office is focused on opening up new clean energy markets, and we see hydrogen as a really big opportunity space. So today I want to talk about three things, and if we have a little bit of time at the end, we're going to do some questions. But I want to talk about the opportunity that hydrogen presents. I want to talk about the U.S. strategy and policy, including talking a little about the hubs announcement. And finally, I want to talk about our hydrogen liftoff report, which is our commercial roadmap to what needs to happen in hydrogen for this to be a commercially viable market long term. So that's sort of our roadmap for today. Oh, there we go. So I always like to remind myself of the TRL spectrum. I know this is a very commonplace thing, but there are hydrogen technologies that span the TRL spectrum. There are some projects that are ready for that commercial debt. There are many, many in the demonstration lane still. And this is why the U.S. is investing $7 billion in hydrogen hubs to demonstrate the technology, to help move things along the technology readiness level spectrum. So hydrogen as a technology has a lot of things that need to move from TRL 4, 5, 6 into that commercial debt of TRL 8 and 9. So let's look at what the U.S. is trying to do. We have a very ambitious goal of reaching net zero by 2050. We need to do a lot, and hydrogen's a key part of that. We describe hydrogen as a Swiss Army knife for its versatility. So there's some hard to abate sectors that hydrogen's going to be needed to help decarbonize. So this is where we're trying to go, and we have a lot of work to do to get there, and we're hoping hydrogen can play a key role in unlocking that decarbonization. So this is the strategy. This is a publicly available document. So there's three pillars to the U.S. strategy on hydrogen. The first one is targeting strategic high impact uses. I'll get a little bit more into what those strategic high impact uses are, but that's sort of the first pillar of this. The next is reducing the cost of clean hydrogen. This is a really simple one, but much harder in practice. The fact is that the clean hydrogen is too expensive for market adoption right now. We need to bring down the cost of green hydrogen. We need to bring down the cost of midstream infrastructure. Everything across the value chain needs to decrease in price for wide-scale adoption. So that's our second pillar there. And then our third pillar is focusing on regional networks, which is what our hydrogen hubs are going to be. And I'll talk about those a little bit later. So what are we trying to do? Our goal lays out the U.S. as a, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. The U.S. is trying to produce 10 million clean tons of hydrogen by 2030. We want to double that to 2040, and I guess 5x it by 2050. So we have really ambitious goals of reaching our clean hydrogen goals, and a big part of that is going to be the hydrogen hubs. So I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Maybe let's move that farther away. So let me move on to what we're doing right now. So we just announced our hydrogen hubs in October. We view this as one of the biggest investments in hydrogen infrastructure in American history. This is $7 billion that's being invested in 7 hubs, and I'll go through what each of the hubs is up to and where they're located, but this is going to produce around 3 million metric tons of clean hydrogen per year. One of the big parts of this as well is we're trying to build long-standing infrastructure, so community benefits plans are a huge part of this. Why are community benefits plans important? It's because it gives us the social license to operate. It helps with workforce challenges. It helps with permitting. It helps build longevity into the hydrogen infrastructure. There's also a huge amount of upstream and downstream activity that we're seeing with the hubs. One of the reasons we've chosen this hub and spoke model for our development is because of the upstream and downstream economic activity that we see. So we are investing $7 billion in hydrogen hubs, and right now we believe it's going to produce $50 billion in economic activity, as well as reduce greenhouse gases of 25 million metric tons per year. So this is the model we sort of have for a hydrogen hub, where you have co-located production as well as usage. So you might have hydrogen being produced from renewable assets that then go into storage or possibly shipment. You have workforce training on site. You sort of have a one-stop shop for everything hydrogen. in all technologies, the midstream is one of the most challenging aspects. Whether you're moving molecules or electrons, midstream is always expensive and very challenging from a permitting standpoint. So as much as we can cut down on the midstream piece, whether it's in pipelines or liquid transport, that we can help reduce the costs through that. So this is sort of what a hub could look like in sort of our sketch. But let's get into where the hubs that we've selected are located. So these are the 7 regional hubs that we have chosen. So you see a good amount of geographical diversity, and each of these 7 hubs has a different sort of hydrogen approach that they're using as a test case. So the Gulf Coast Hydrogen Hub, for example, is more focused on heavy duty as well as blue hydrogen. The Appalachias also more focused on e-fuels, kind of going through it. Heartland Hydrogen Hub, you're really close to a lot of ammonia needs, so there's a green ammonia application there. The California Hydrogen Hub is really focused on green hydrogen applications. So within each of those, the little dots are centers of economic activity. So we are currently in final negotiations with the hubs. We hope to have that finished, I'll just say soon, and for these projects to start moving forward. But this is $7 billion. There's more information specifically on each of the hubs available online and sort of what their approach is. But you see a good amount of regional diversity as well as use case diversity. So we're really excited to sort of jumpstart this diverse and broad hydrogen ecosystem within the United States. So this is one thing that I've been working on specifically, is the demand side. So we, through our hydrogen hubs, will be creating a lot of supply. What is being done to create the demand? So we're at a stalemate right now in the market. Hydrogen's too expensive. It's too expensive, that scares away buyers. Buyers are scared away, so you don't have suppliers, and you're stuck in this death cycle. You can call it a chicken or the egg, however you want to characterize it. Right now, the market needs more market makers. It needs more demand-side support to work. So how do we fix this? So of the Hydrogen Hub money, we are devoting a good amount to a demand-side initiative. So this is a bit of a busy slide, but essentially we have partnered with EFI and S&P Global as well as ICE to create a demand-side mechanism. So think of H2 Global, think of the LCCC in the UK for what they did for offshore wind. How can you help create this market through demand-side tools? So we announced this partnership in December of last year, and right now we're sort of in the development phase. We hope to have something before the end of the year, sometime in the early fall, of what this is going to look like. There's a lot of forms that this could take. It could be sort of reverse auctions, it could be contracts for differences, it could be price floors. So we are thinking creatively of how to spur that demand specifically from the supply that we'll be bringing on through our hydrogen hubs. So what could this, so one more here, there we go. So these are some of the potential mechanisms that we're thinking about. We have a lot of sort of diversity here. We're kind of being very open-minded, everything ranging from price support to other sort of, sorry, I can't even read my slides here, it's too small, but there's a diverse sort of supply, a number of tools that we're looking at to think about how we can help figure out the demand side piece of this. Because without the demand solved, it doesn't matter how much supply we have. Right now, hydrogen is just too expensive, and we need to start creating more market transparency. We need to start creating more transactions in place and more contracts so people can even think and look at what a clean hydrogen contract looks like for offtake. So that's what we're doing sort of at DOE. We have the 7 hydrogen hubs, we have demand mechanism. We also have 45V, which has proposed guidance right now. I'm not going to comment specifically on 45V, but it's a hydrogen production tax credit that has proposed guidance out right now that we have received a hearty amount of comments about, that we are waiting for final release of that guidance by the end of the year, hopefully sooner. So let me talk a little about this, the liftoff report that I worked on. So this is a product that I'm pretty proud of. It's available online for free. We've done a series of these liftoff reports on different technology areas. Hydrogen's just one, but if you ever want to know how is the USG thinking, or how is DOE thinking about a certain market and the market viability, I'd highly recommend the liftoff reports. Everything from advanced nuclear to grid, virtual power plants. Hydrogen's one of them. So we have a tremendous domestic opportunity. Right now we use about 10 million metric tons of hydrogen every year, and all of that essentially is gray hydrogen. So we want to clean that up to 10 million by 2030, and we do see a number of post-IRA projects accelerating. So finally, we're starting to see some of these announcements. The speaker after me is from Nel Hydrogen, for example, their announcement in Michigan. Other electrolyzer manufacturers, Topsoe announced a big facility in Virginia. So we're finally starting to see this acceleration in the post-IRA sort of market development piece. And there's a number of tax credits that have helped make that market more viable, but there's a bit of a lag period from the passage of the bill to today, where you see a lot more electrolyzer manufacturing as well as upstream and downstream activity going into place. So finally, we're seeing that supply chain scale up, but we also need to be thinking about the midstream piece. Distribution and storage costs are really high. The United States is blessed with rather good storage and salt caverns. We want to utilize these more, as well as figure out the distribution piece. No one likes building pipelines, but how do we move hydrogen successfully? So we're thinking about this as well as open access resources. So as we build our hubs, how can we create open access so that these are more shared resources and not closed to broader usage? And then looking at the downstream piece, there's a bunch of near-term, medium-term, and long-term opportunities. If you're thinking about heavy-duty trucking, ammonia, these might be more in the near-term. Medium-term, you're looking, maybe ammonia as well as some of the industrial decarb, but long-term offtake is really crucial to all of this. There's a lot of market-specific challenges and opportunities. We'll get into that in the final slide. And then finally, hydrogen is a commodity, or will be a commodity, hopefully. And we hope to explore the sort of export opportunities and helping grow the global market for hydrogen and leading the way. So let me move on to, this is a rather busy slide here, but these sort of go through the different sectors and the opportunity within hydrogen. So I think in the near term, ammonia is one of the biggest opportunities the department's looking at as far as market adoption, as well as steel, green steel, H2 DRI is something that we're thinking very closely about, as well as a number of sort of opportunities as you cascade below. I wish I had a slide on the hydrogen ladder. I think it's a really great tool for visualizing sort of the opportunity cases here. So this is available online, as I said, sort of perusing at your leisure later, but this is a really fast growing domestic market that we believe could reach $150 billion. You see that range of $80 to $150 billion by 2050, because we're not sure. And a lot of those decisions and that growth is really dependent on what happens today, the investments being made today. One of the things we say all the time at DOE is we're trying to find the solutions in the 2020s so that we can scale them in the 2030s. That's the only way we're going to reach net zero by 2050, is if we use the next 6 years to explore what technologies work and then what don't, what just aren't going to come down the cost curve, what's too chemically challenging or what's just not financially viable, so we don't need to bother scaling it in the 2030s. So that's one of the key things to think about, is these are the decades of figuring it out and then scaling so we can actually reach a net zero by 2050 in the US. Finally, just kind of looking at a list of sort of challenges and solutions. All of these solutions cost money. That's the key part of all of this. There's a huge amount of investment that's needed in the sort of hydrogen value chain right now. So everything here is going to cost money, as well as require a lot of intentionality. So right now, the hydrogen market is much more mature than it was 3 years ago, but we need to rapidly transform in the next 6 years to reach any sort of goals for 2030, as well as 2040, 2050. So I think there's a lot of long-term thinking happening right now, but there's a lot of key steps that need to be made in the near term to make the long term more viable. And I think I have about a minute left here. So why don't, if anyone has one question, I'm happy to answer a question. Your hand was first, so go ahead. Yeah.
Does the demand have to be created in the US, or can the demand be out of the US?
So within the hydrogen demand mechanism, the supply has to be coming from the hubs, but it can have export potential. So the demand could be outside the US, but it needs to, the supply.
Does it invest in creating demand outside the US or just the US?
It's mostly invested in creating the supply through sort of production tax credits, but it's not really investing in the demand side outside of the US. But if there is demand, for example, in Asia or in Europe, I think there is no statutory requirements that don't allow us to export hydrogen. Any other questions here? Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, I was wondering, how long do you think the demand side supports or incentives are going to be needed? And once they've done their job, how hard is it going to be to wean industry out from expectations that they're going to be around forever?
No, it's a really great question. I think we're hoping that the sort of demand side mechanisms are only there for 5 to 10 years. I think we're hoping to have a clean energy, looking at our hydrogen shot goal, that is what we are aspirationally looking towards, is $1 per kilo of clean hydrogen by 2031. That's where we're trying to go, and that's without any sort of demand side mechanisms. I think the demand side is just needed to jumpstart things right now. There's just not offtake materializing in a material way for hydrogen long term. So I think that's what we're trying to jumpstart right now with the demand side mechanism. So I think if you look at something like H2 Global or the European green auctions, you see similar models. They're 5 to 7 years, but they're not really looking 20 years out. And I think that's all the time. I'm getting the red light. So thank you very much.